So yeah, good to great. I think we're all good, aren't we? I hope. And what I'm going to do is just talk about how the world I inhabit shows that what you're doing is already good, and it's about how then we can make that great. So I'm the founder of a company called CSRA Accreditation. We're the only environmental and social responsibility accreditation body in the world, but we also provide social impact reporting and sustainability consultancy, and we provide training as well. And Silverstone Technology Cluster are one of our accredited organisations, so they've come through the process. That's not why I'm here. Why I'm here today is really just to quickly kind of bombard you, overwhelm you a little bit with just how complicated the sustainability landscape has become, and the fact that this is all about change. I mean, there's one thing we can guarantee is that change happens. It's the one factor in life that is certain. So how do we accommodate that change, and how do we do something that can benefit our businesses in a way that makes our companies sustainable and profitable for the future? So this is a little snapshot. TCFD, CSR, the IFAs, D&I, GRI, ESG, Scope 3, CSR. It goes on and on and on. And I'm a senior advisor for the government's all-party parliamentary group for ESG. I sit at round tables in Westminster with the likes of KPMG and Balfour Beatty and BA Systems. And this is what the language is like. Till somebody stands up and says, you know what, I haven't understood a thing for the last 20 minutes. Can you break it down to something that we actually understand? And that's partly what I want to try and do, and try and offer you guys today some language that you can take away and infect and create change within your organisation. Obviously, we got the commitment to net zero in 2050, no longer adding to the total amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So we understand that companies have to produce greenhouse gases. Some don't have a choice. Others, possibly like ours, can do things to offset that by reducing our carbon footprint, and therefore we should reach a level of equilibrium by 2050. I believe it's possible. I see a lot of companies doing some amazing things. We're at the beginning of that hockey stick now where we're going to see this really, really scope up. The thing is, to do this, we have to collaborate. We have to work outside of our silos. We have to work with all stakeholders, both internally and externally. And that's partly because we've got the scope reporting, which, while this isn't mandated yet, is something that supply chains will be knocking on the door of other supply chains to say, what's your carbon footprint? 1 and 2 is what we control in our buildings, what we control in our companies. Scope 3 is the products and services that we buy in or that we sell out. And some companies are now mandated, certainly the CSRD, the Corporate Social Reporting Directive, mandates companies to report on their carbon footprint. So it's likely that this is something that we're going to have to deal with. And of course, behind that, we've got a whole lot of legislation and regulation. We heard earlier that in employment law, we're seeing regulation coming in. Now, obviously, that was voluntary before. My golden bit of advice is do things now while you have the choice, and not when you're told to do them because regulation comes in. So there'll be a lot more regulation around hybrid working, for example, which has an impact on your social value and your community engagement strategies. And we already are seeing claims, legislation in place that will fine your business for making claims that you can't back up. The first company that fell foul of this was Lufthansa at the beginning of the year for making claims about the sustainability of their aviation fuel. Even though they weren't a British company, their British operation was heavily fined. And then ESG. So what the hell is ESG? Environment, social and governance. Is it CSR? Is it social value? Is it something completely different? It is in fact the way that the global financial markets measure risk and opportunity when investing in companies. It's all about data. It's not a framework. It relies on other frameworks for you to do it. And most companies won't need to worry about ESG in the sense of rating agencies and the financial services sector. But it's a language, it's something that's getting louder and louder. At the moment, there is regulation in the UK, no global regulation, and in America, it's been politicized, and I'm not entirely sure we'll have ESG in 4 or 5 years' time. It'll be something else. And then we've got a whole load of non-financial disclosure reporting. So the TCFD, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, was mandated by the UK, by Japan, by Canada. That's now gone. That's how quickly change is happening. That's been replaced by IFAs 1 and 2, which is to report on our non-financial disclosures around sustainability and our non-financial disclosures around climate change. And then we have at the beginning of this year, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. So this is an EU initiative. If you are importing or exporting from the EU, you will be required to contribute to the CSRD reporting. At the moment, it's just limited and registered companies within the CSRD, within the European Union. By 2029, it will be parent companies. So if you're in Japan and you're supplying into the EU, then the parent company will be required to, mandated to report to the CSRD. So that's the background. It's really complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on. But I think that if businesses think about how they can deliver a level of social responsibility to the environment and to their people, they will see that this is a profit centre. The future shape of business will be measured in both financial and social value. And you have that return on social investment, which is the money you will save by putting this in. So, you know, the cost of attrition or people leaving or not recruiting the right people, and the social return on investment, which is the impact you make to create a better world for future generations and improve the quality of lives for all. So the benefits for businesses are numerous, and I just want to touch on one or two or three of these things. But employment, engagement and retention is massive. What is the cost of not keeping your people? We're moving to an area now where businesses are building cultures that people want to be part of. So it's about how do we retain our people. During the pandemic, especially in the law sector, we saw lots of companies being lots of individuals being headhunted by companies in London, for example, in the cities, away from their provincial law companies, on the offer of a lot more money. Since the pandemic's ended, I've heard so many anecdotal stories of these people coming back to the firms that they left, because even though they got more money, the culture wasn't right for them. And they wanted to work for a culture that was matched up with what they thought. The attracting talent is critical. We've heard earlier that there's a change in mindset from a younger generation. They want something different. They are prepared to work for a company for less money, providing it provides social and environmental value, that it is doing something that matches their sense of value and purpose. And this is a generation that have a different attitude to the workplace and to the way they want to work and to the culture that they want to be part of. And this is the generation that will refer to their friends and colleagues to work in this company, because I think it's a great company to work and I think you should get a job here. There's a huge skills gap at the moment. So, you know, finding the talent and attracting the talent is really critical. And then customer client engagement is really critical. This kicks into the supply chain side of things. So within the Silverstone Technology Cluster, lots of companies sit within supply chains, and those supply chains will start to ask questions around your sustainability. A good example at the moment is that the NHS insists on a carbon reduction plan to work for the NHS, if you're going to be in the supply chain for the NHS. So what is a carbon reduction plan? Simply put, it's a plan to reduce your carbon footprint, to reduce your carbon. And it's a plan. You can then put that over 5 years. Year one, we'll reduce our carbon footprint by 20%. We'll change to LED lights, we'll get EVs in, we'll do whatever it might be. So you build that plan. The NHS insist on that if you want to be part of the supply chain. So it's about that customer client engagement and how you can answer the regular questions to stay within the supply chain. Another company of ours who makes these large flat screen high-res monitors provide the trading floor for HSBC. HSBC recently gave them a sustainability questionnaire that if they couldn't answer, they would not be in the supply chain. And they were able to answer it with our help. Community engagement is critical. We live and work in communities. So important that you support the community, you engage with the community by employing locally, by buying locally, by supporting local problems. There's a big difference between community engagement and charitable engagement, although there's an overlap. But yes, supporting charities is important. And I often say it's what a charity can do to help your business, not what you can do to help the charity. Charities can help your business show what good looks like. It can help you show leadership. It can help you provide volunteering and opportunities for your staff to be engaged with the community and with charitable endeavours. And it's about building a relationship. A one-off act of generosity is box ticking. It's not building a long-term relationship. And then really clear things like operational cost savings. Turn the lights off, save money. Take computers off standby, save money. LED lights, save money. Think about your waste management strategies. Diverting things from landfill, you can save money. So there's operational cost savings. And of course, win tenders and attract investment. High street banks now are insisting on sustainability questions when you go for a loan. Insurance companies are factoring it into the insurance quotes. Going for tenders, public sector tenders are weighted to as much as 30% for environmental and social value when you're putting a tender together. So these are all really critical things. Improve your brand and business reputation. As well, reputation is huge. Brewdog, you may remember, claimed that they had planted more trees than you could plant in the whole of Wales, only to be scuppered by a culture of whistleblowing that exposed a culture of toxic bullying within the workplace, something that they have struggled to recover from. So, we live in a digital age where the public, your workers, your supply chain, your customers, they can find out what you're doing on the internet. They can look at what you're doing. They can look at your reputation. If you make a claim that you can't back up, then you are likely to fall foul in terms of your brand reputation. And it's about fostering innovation. Sustainability is brilliant for innovation. Green technologies, innovative technologies. We've heard a lot recently about algae impregnated concrete that soaks in more carbon than it takes to make the concrete, and the buildings continue to do that. And of course, within Silverstone and the whole move towards electric and hybrid cars, and possibly looking at hydrogen and the future of motoring and transport is really exciting area. So sustainability is becoming a major business disruptor and a competitive differentiator, creating both risks and opportunities. The risks are not doing this stuff. You'll get left behind. It's as simple as that. So if you want to be in business tomorrow, you're going to have to think about your sustainability. This is the change that's happening. But don't panic. There's no rush. You've got plenty of time to do it. You can put your 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year plans in place. There's no rush. So it's not a question of like, crikey, we've got to turn the light switch on and we do all this stuff. We have time to think about what we are already doing, the good that is already happening in your business, and how we can make that great. So if we're struggling to navigate an increasingly complex sustainability landscape, we have a perfect solution, a relevant and holistic framework that delivers an up-to-date standard for environmental and social responsibility. And it's really easy. First of all, it's based on redefining the C in CSR. So the C stands for corporate, for company, for community, for charitable. But most important, it's about collective CSR or collaborative social responsibility, working together. Because if we don't do it together, we won't get these things done and we won't make the change. And it's based on a simple framework of 4 pillars. All of the businesses in this room today are already delivering against these 4 pillars. Whether it's having a single-use plastics policy, whether it's having electric cars, whether it's recruiting apprenticeships or a mental health and well-being policy, whether it's working with the community, part of a business group, part of the Silverstone Technology Cluster, for example, or whether it's supporting a charity. We're already doing stuff. The thing is, how do we make the most of it? How do we make something out of it that can create some positive impact and actually bring people along on the journey? You can grid it out. You can look at each of these areas. Within environment, what is your energy? How do you manage waste? What about your supply chain and travel? Community, recruitment, investment, groups and engagement, and workplace diversity, mental health, and philanthropy, policies and volunteering, and so on. So look at what you're doing and how do they fit in with those 4 pillars. Make a list and then look at where the gaps are. And if you look at the environment stuff, what component of that contributes towards your net zero strategy? What component contributes towards your social value or your community engagement? So these are easy things to do. You're doing them. So it's a question of making sure that you can see them and bring them together and then start a sustainability program within your organization. So it's about planning social responsibility as a strategy, and it should align with your business strategy, because if you're going to do it, you'll need to resource it and you'll need to have senior management approval of it. But to deliver it, you need people within the organization. So it's building capacity in your organization, and that's part of the change, that's part of the behavior. Because for me, it's about how do we bring people into the company, or look at people already in the organization and empower them to be our sustainability ambassadors. One thing that I think is really important, because we talk a lot about sustainability or leadership and sustainability. My current talk is focused on the fact that sustainability, leadership and sustainability isn't just for sustainability leaders, it's for us all. We are all sustainability leaders. And whenever we sit within the organisation, we see something differently. This year is the first time in my professional career that I've been asked to go and speak to the factory floor. I've done it 3 times in the last several months. I've gone and spoken to people on the factory floor, not the senior management, not middle management, not HR. I've gone to the factory floor. And I think 5 years ago, they would have looked at their shoes and their watches and wondered what the hell they were doing here. They hang on every word. And afterwards, they talk about paper and plastic recycling. They talk about packaging. They talk about mental health and awareness. They talk about diversity and inclusion. They talk about all these things. They talk about what they want their company to be and how their company can be better
by engaging with change and ensuring that that happens in a way that can be delivered. So delivering a sustainability policy is about identifying your key social responsibility stakeholders. And as I said, they come from within your organisation, from the newest recruit to the senior management to the board of directors. They also come from your supply chain. They come from your customers. They even come from your competitors. So this is about how do we build a policy. We talk about materiality sometimes, which I change for the word relevance. What's relevant to our company when it comes to your suppliers? What would they like to see? What would your competitors like to see? What would your staff like to see? There'll all be different things, ethical pensions or carbon reduction plans, but you could start to build a policy based upon what is relevant or material to your business. And that's how you prioritise. You don't do all of these things at once. You work out how you can take the things that you need to do first and then plan it. And most importantly, make sure you record and report your CSR successes. Impact is where it's all at. It's all about the data. Now that data could be technical data, the data that, for example, the ESG rating agencies look at, but it could also be about positive storytelling, positive narrative. I always say that if you're going to have positive storytelling, you have to have positive story doing to back it up. Make sure that you can back your claims up where you can, and you can't do it across the board. Any of your organisations, like I said, against the 4 pillars, you can say, well, we're doing recycling. What's the evidence for here's a photograph of our recycling bins, That's fine, but in time you can talk about the reduction of your recycling. You can talk about putting those KPIs, and you mentioned the acronym. And just a fun fact, actually, I'm not having a dig at you, because I had to find this out when I read this talk. And an acronym, does anyone know what an acronym is? It's when an initialization spells out a word. NASA is an acronym. CSR is an initialization. That's just something I learned. And
there's a mouthful.
So your KPIs, so your key performance indicators are very important to put planning and goal setting in place so that you can work towards those goals and show that you are making progress, because that's where the true value is in the impact that we have. And then evidencing it. Evidencing is king. And we can evidence things very easy. If you work with a charity, for example, get them to do an impact report, write a testimonial, write something to say, look, don't brag and show off. Just say that as a result of this company supporting us, we were able to achieve X, Y, and Z. So that's showing that you're making an impact. It could be your electricity bill. In 2020, the UK reduced its national electricity bill by 20%, not 0.2% or 2%, but 20%. Because in the previous 18 months, LED lights got into showrooms, into factories, into football stadiums, into shopping malls. It made a massive difference. Your electricity bill can show the evidence to support your reduction in energy use by doing a simple act like that. So show the impact your sustainability policy has made. And then if you report that, not every year, but every 2 or 3 years, you can show the progress you're making. And actually with that materiality thing, when we talk about what's important, very important, or not important, the not important isn't because we don't care. It's because we're doing it really well and we don't need to think about it. So often people put human rights in the not important because they have a policy and they're really delivering it and they're doing it. So it's not that they care, it's that fact that they've already got it done well. So by reporting it and showing the impact, you can then show that you're making progress.
And then basically what you do in terms of your organisation, moving from that good to great, is you can use your environmental and social responsibility strategy to address ESG compliance should you need to, which you may not need to. You can prepare for the race to net zero if you're not doing that already. And a good way to do that is, often we have situations where a company will do great things about reducing their carbon footprint, but they won't know what their carbon footprint is. So it's a good idea to go out and find a third-party company to help you do that. It's good that it's a third party because that independent recognition and validation is super important. Once you know what that carbon footprint is, then you can measure your success going forward. You can say that by implementing all these things, we can show that we are reducing our dependency on oil and gas and reducing our carbon footprint. And as I said, it builds a culture that empowers employees to do environmental and social good, attract talent, win tenders, and improve brand reputation. The empowering employees is super important because what it does is it gives them advocacy. It's about autonomy. And Gallup said in a recent State of the Workplace poll, according to Gallup in the UK, only 11% of the workforce are engaged in their jobs. something like 60% are just coming to work and they go home again, and then the remaining percentage are actively disengaged. The three key drivers for engagement in the workplace, number one was basically purpose. So delivering on our purpose and our environmental and social responsibilities. Number two was autonomy, giving people the opportunity to say something about what they think is important and contribute to the success of that business. And number three was being given the opportunity to go on training and to be invested in as a classic common thing with regard to recruitment. So what I want to do today, what I hope I've been able to do today, is take you on a journey from that complicated sustainability landscape that you don't need to be frightened of. You can break it down to a language that you understand, and more importantly, a language you can disseminate to your employees and your customers and your supply chain and all internal and external stakeholders. And then you can start to use that language to build a process based on stuff that you are already doing. So none of you have to start from a standing position. You're already on a sustainability journey. It's just a question of finding out where you are on that journey and how relevant that is and where you need to prioritize your actions going forward. And then you can start to use that to satisfy tenders, to answer sustainability questionnaires, and to build in a culture within your organization that enables ambassador, those sustainability ambassadors. So I'm probably ahead of time, actually. I'm right on time, actually, so I timed that perfectly. So I hope that's been of an education for you as well, and that you see that there's a lot of talk about sustainability. Is it just a kind of thing that we don't need to think about? It's not going away. It's being included in almost everything. It's an essential part of your business strategy. Start doing it now before you have to do a lot of these things, and really the final thing that I'm going to say on this, and this is the thing we get back from all the companies we've accredited, and we've accredited organisations throughout the world, from micro businesses to multinationals, and the one common denominator is that they do this because it's the right thing to do. They're building a legacy for future generations. So it might not be because they're mandated or because of brand or because of tendering, because they feel that's what they need to do. So thank you very much for listening.